Welcome to the 9th day of the 21-day data challenge by Lighthouse Labs. Fair warning, this video contains a solution to today's challenge, so please attempt the problem before continuing on. Reference this video if you get stuck or want to see an alternative way to tackle the problem. And with that said, on to the day 9 challenge. Let's go ahead and open up the challenge. Looking at the challenge today, it looks like Dot needs a little bit more information about cows and how much milk they produce. We'll be analyzing a set of data and answering a few simple questions. Scrolling on down, we see we're given examples on how to fill blank values in cells that are present in the table. Moving down a little bit more, we can see the questions that are going to be asked of us today. The three questions are, what is the average for monthly milk production? What is the standard deviation for monthly milk production? And what is the average number of cows used? Before doing any of this, we need to fill out missing values in the cells. Let's go ahead and start by importing pandas, as well as filling in data frame with the milk_2.csv spreadsheet. We'll take a look at the table, just so that we can wrap our head around it with a visual representation. We'll use the head method and run that, and we can see that we're presented with three columns: a month, which is actually the year in the month, the monthly milk production per cow, and the number of cows. Let's go ahead and look at a few more columns. We'll use the method tail to look at the last few columns. And the reason I wanted to do this is to show you that there are indeed null values within the table. These are represented with the three letters NaN. What we need to do is fill out these empty cells. We're given instructions on how to fill them out. The challenge states to fill out the missing values in the monthly milk production column with the median. So let's go ahead and figure out what the median is. We'll copy this as the column that we are referencing, and we'll use the method median to determine what we need to use to fill out the empty cells. 755.5. To actually fill out the cells, we'll reference the column, we'll set it equal to the column, and we'll use the fill NA with the value of 755.5 of what we determined previously, and we'll run this. Next, we'll need to fill out the null values for the number of cows column. Scrolling up to the challenge, it seems like we need to fill out the number of cows column using the ffill method. To figure out how to use the ffill method, we can reference the pandas documentation. I went to the API reference, I clicked on data frame, and then I searched for fill NA. Clicking on this, it gives me the information that I need to be able to use the ffill method. Taking a look here, it's very similar to when we specified the value, but instead this time we'll be specifying the method and we'll use the ffill. And what ffill does, it propagates the last valid observation forward. To explain what's happening here with a visual representation, if we take a look at this sample output, it will start at the beginning, i.e. the lowest row, take the number here, and if there's a null in the next column, it'll use that number to fill out the next line. It'll continue doing that as long as there's empty values. Line 159 will be populated with 62, line 160 will be populated with 62, and since 161 already has a value, nothing will happen, and it'll continue on like that from the front to the back of the database. This is practical for this type of data set because realistically you're going to be growing the number of cows that you have rather than minimizing that population. While we might start off with less cows, we'll have more later on, and so it doesn't make sense to use the average of those two. Instead, it makes sense to reference the previous value. Another practical application where this might be used is in temperature. If you have a bunch of days throughout the year where you don't know what the temperature was, it makes most sense to take a value from either the day before or the day after. It doesn't make sense to take the average of the year because then, in Canada at least, you'd probably get something closer to 0 degrees, whereas a forward fill or a backfill method would be much more applicable for that type of operation. So let's go ahead and fill out the null values of the number of cows column. It's very similar to our operation up here, so I'll copy that down here, but we'll change the column name to number of cows. We'll still use the fill NA method, but instead of specifying the value this time, we'll specify the fill method. We'll reference the documentation again and look for an example. This right here looks like exactly what we need, and we'll go ahead, copy and paste that in and run this. So to make sure that this works, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get some information about the table. We can see that there are a total of 168 entries. In the first column, there are no nulls. In the second column, there are nulls, approximately 18. And in the third column, there are approximately 17 null columns. Now, if I copy and paste this command again, and place it after we've filled all the empty values, we should find that all three columns have a total of 168 non-null fields. And there we go. So now that we have our table filled out, it's just a matter of answering these questions. To determine the average for monthly milk production, we need to find a method that will provide this information. Going over to the documentation, I'm going to search first for average or a short form of average. I hit Control F and typed in AV, but I didn't find anything. Then I realized that another way of saying average is median or mean. It seems like I'm looking for the mean. If I go back to the documentation and type in mean and click on it, then I can see how I could use this. Let's go ahead and query the monthly milk production column. We'll specify the column we are querying and use the mean method and run this, and we get the value of 748.05. Scrolling down to the answer, we can already see that we have a confirmation that that could be a valid answer. Let's go ahead and answer number 2. What is the standard deviation for monthly milk production? So going back to the documentation, I'll hit Control F and type in standard, and we see we have a result here. I'll click on that. We can see that the description of the method says return sample standard deviation over requested axes. This is exactly what I'm looking for, so I'll go ahead and use this. I'll copy and paste the line above, and instead of using mean, I'll type in STD, and I get 93.64. Go down here, 93.64.78, and that matches our query. This is further confirmation that this answer is correct. And then the final ask is, what is the average number of cows used? I know that the mean method is what I'm looking for, so I'll go ahead and copy and paste that in here, but instead of referencing the monthly milk production, I'll use the number of cows column. 49.89. And there we have it. So this is 3 queries of confirmation that this is the correct answer. Now what I realized after going through all this effort is that the other day we used a method that will determine all this for us. And that method is describe. Looking at the result of describe, I can see that the average monthly milk production pounds per cow is 748, as we discovered earlier, 748.05. The standard deviation is 93.64, and the average number of cows is 49.89. So with one method, we were able to get all that information, but it's great to know that there's often multiple ways to do the same thing. Let's go ahead and submit this answer, and there we have it. I hope you got some value out of this day 9 video for the 21-day data challenge by Lighthouse Labs. I'll be back tomorrow with another video covering the 10th challenge. See you then.